So I'm going to talk, but really I hope that you also have lots of things to ask to Ruth, or whatever. And if I ask you questions that you think, oh my God, not this question, please tell me. Okay?
I will give you an answer to another question.
Okay, good. No. So to start, I was wondering how did you start the journey towards this film? Do you start it because you wanted to? You knew all the people in the street, and you thought that it could be very interesting to tell about not everything you're exploring, but almost everything you're exploring in the film, or did you had this idea, but there was also already a rising of the extreme right, and then you thought that maybe it could be a good feel, I don't know why, thread with to talk about this within the street, or was it a surprise during the filming? You know what I mean? I don't know.
Well, actually, I wanted to make a film about my street, and it was right after I'd done a quite difficult and quite expensive film that I shot in Egypt. It's called A Fleeting Passage to the Orient, and it was difficult and exhausting. So I thought I would like to do something with a low budget and just in front of my house. And I had no idea that the extreme right would win. They didn't win the elections, but they won quite a big number of votes. And finally they formed a coalition with the Conservative Party. So this was not at all my idea. It happened. So I shot the film in autumn, and then again, I shot all the time, more or less, but then it changed. The situation changed because everybody spoke about this new government. And there were many demonstrations against them. It was in the year 1999, 2000, when I made the film. And in 2000, in February, I think they formed the government. And there were many demonstrations, and a lot of things were going on in the city. And it was very tempting to go and shoot outside my street. But I really restricted myself to this concept of staying in the street and more or less in this cafe, which doesn't exist anymore. Like most of what you saw doesn't exist anymore. And the cafe was right opposite my house. So in summer it was really my terrace, I had my meetings there, met my friends there, and I stick to this place and the reflections of what was going on in this street.
And then you had it's very beautiful. It's very interesting to see the reflection of the big politic, but within this huis clos, kind of huis clos. Yeah,
and it was really a special place because people from all over the city came to meet there, and we had these two newspapers, two weeklies in the street. So the journalists came to have lunch or coffee, and artists just came to meet there. So it was a very special place, and today Vienna is that the places people meet are much more spread out. There is not one place, people go So it was also a moment in time in the development of the city. So it's a document in the end.
Yes, yeah. And so, as you were filming, you understood that you understood that it will be really about the rising of the extreme right and this week law in the cafe. You didn't discover it at the editing, or what did you discover at the editing? Sometimes we discover things at the editing.
Of course,
that you filmed, but you didn't really understand them.
Of course, I discovered that the film has a dramaturgy which is quite interesting, which maybe it wouldn't have had if this extreme right wouldn't have won. You know, what is good for a film is not always good for life.
Yeah.
But in this case, it just happened, so it's there.
Yeah. And
but I also discovered, of course, the relationship between the people, and because if you just live there, you speak to people in a different way than when you shoot a film, which was not easy. It's easier in a way to have a certain time for shooting. When you go somewhere, you have 3 weeks or 5 weeks. And in this case, as it was there in front of my house, sometimes I had to force myself to take my camera and go downstairs. Actually, we had 1 week in autumn and 1 week in spring or in the new year, in winter, with a full crew, with a camera person and sound and so on. And for the rest of the time, I sometimes took my camera and just shot myself, filmed myself.
I was wondering, because sometimes you see a room, and so you say, okay, there is a sound person,
So there was not a real shooting period, so you have to overcome this laziness or inhibition to really go and shoot.
Yeah. And did you discover things, I guess you have discovered things because you were there a lot with your camera and not as a customer. You know, it's not the same position.
Of course.
Yeah.
I mean, I always like how people react to the camera. And in this film, it's very obvious that people play with me and the camera. And I mean, of course, this Mr. Doft, who became the main character in a way, because he was the go-between. He was always outside his shop, and he wait in my house. There was a kindergarten, and he loved the kids, and the kids liked him because he had always big boxes of bonbons, and gave them to the kids. So, and he went many times a day to the cafe to have a coffee. So he was a lot outside in the street, which was good for the film. And I mean, I also liked him. He was a very special man, with all his history, and he lived in Vienna for such a long time, but his German is quite bad. And he was, just sweet.
Yeah, and he knew, I mean, everybody knew him, so it was also good for you.
Of course.
Yeah, you just had to follow him and people would arrive and talk with him.
Of course. And his wife was also interesting. I mean, the relationship between them and the relationship between him and the Iranian hotel owner, who also lived in Vienna for a long time, and his German is very bad, you know. It's strange,
No, it's not strange. I have tried to learn your language, and it's so fucking hard. Really, I have learned Romanian. I have learned lots of languages in my life, but German is like, but warum, everything. You know, it's not logical, it's hard. It's really hard for foreigners who don't learn it as kids. So, I don't know, that's my experience. We can go on speaking, but really, please, yes, we can. And I don't know if people who are there and are hearing you. So.
Nearly everybody mentions this Ernst, did you have the opportunity to meet him before he died? The guy who has the picture of the cafe, he was the magnet of the whole neighborhood.
What was the question?
Did you have the opportunity to meet him in person? Because the film is already 20 years old, and I don't know exactly when he died.
Ernst, from the owner of the cafe.
Yeah, I knew him. Yeah, but when I started filming, he was already dead. Yes.
And
he was a strange man because he came from a complete. I mean, this cafe in the street is in the center of Vienna, and he came from one of the outer districts and from a completely different milieu. More lower class, working class milieu, and he became such an important person in this cafe because he was always there, and there was the table for the habitués, and he liked all these people a lot, and they liked him. And his wife, in the end, took over, but after a couple of years she sold the place. She stopped. And actually the place was not really up to the standards of a modern kitchen. You know, there was this, I don't know if you see it in the film, but they just cooked it somewhere. So the hygienic standards were not met, and they closed it, unfortunately. Now it's a very posh French restaurant, Le Salzgris. Yeah. And there was a big protest movement against the closing. I mean, all the people you see in the film were against it, and the new owner who came from France and from Nice, in the beginning he tried to make us his friends. He gave a party and he said he will continue the cafe, but of course he didn't, and he just made a restaurant which is very expensive.
Did he see the movie?
What?
Did this new owner see the movie?
In the movies?
Did he have the opportunity
Yes,
to watch
yes,
it?
he saw the movie. Yes. He's a nice guy. I mean, it's not his fault. But the time changed anyway. I mean, those people wouldn't come anymore. Some of them are dead already. So.
I thought the film was very beautiful, and you have some shots there that are really like meaningful. For example, the one with the asphalt and the ray of light that slowly goes out. But never mind. The question was, at some point, you say there's this poem about cafe culture. Do you by any chance remember what is it?
You mean this saying that being in a cafe is...
I think I wrote it. A view whose inner essence is not to avoid viewing the world, is to avoid viewing the world? No, I don't know. It's by, I don't remember.
Polga.
Yeah, Polga.
Polga, it's Alfred
Yeah.
Polga, who was a writer.
Yeah.
And he said, to be in a cafe and to read the papers is a way of not viewing the world,
Yeah.
not looking at the world as it is.
Mm.
So maybe that's true. I mean, was that your...
Yeah.
But I don't agree with him. I don't agree with him. I have the feeling that from the cafe you look at the world also.
Yes.
So, I don't know.
Yeah, you look at the world, but it's also a way not to live your life, not to live.
Yeah.
If you sit in the cafes and you read the papers and you meet people, you, in a way, distance yourself of action.
It's true.
Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe he meant it in
Yeah,
that
yes.
way,
Yeah,
that you create this bubble.
yeah.
I found it very interesting. I've been living in Vienna for a couple of years of my life. I found it very interesting. I've been living in Vienna for a couple of years of my life, and yeah, I like the contrast, or some very light topics, and on the other side, very deep and poignant story, like and a bit of brushes on the Holocaust. So it was a beautiful cameo, and yeah, remind me that many times in the past I had a bit of a deja vu. That in the past I used to go to Judenplatz, and it was a very surreal. I like that area because it was a very surreal atmosphere. I recall myself sitting at one of the cafes of the Platz and eating, for example, Wiener Schnitzel, and enjoying this atmosphere that was unique. Was a bit like a little village inside the capital. So I really like that. How the whole story and the various characters have been moving one after the other. Is Dov still alive and he retired finally, or still working at that shop?
He's dead, and he worked as long as he could. And after his death, his wife still kept the shop for 2 years, and then she closed it. And she died a year ago. So.
Thanks a lot.
But I think it's also what you said, it's true that, and it's not anymore like that in Vienna, because the center became very touristic, and we still have beautiful cafes, but you rarely. At the time, we just went to a cafe and you knew that you would meet friends there, or people you knew. This is not anymore like that. And in the beautiful cafes, there are so many tourists today that sometimes you hardly find a table. And people live differently, you know. I think since the social media and computer and internet and everything, people don't go out to the cafes that much. They go if they have a rendezvous, if they have a meeting, but just to sit there. Sometimes people go and work there, but it's not this atmosphere of going to, and you be sure that you get all the news and all the gossip. For instance, when I lived in Paris and I came to Vienna every 5 or 6 weeks, I just had to go to this cafe, and in one evening or one afternoon I knew everything about everybody. So that's not anymore like that.
You go to a cafe and everybody is with his computer. Yeah, working alone. Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking of how you have edited the film. You know, you had the feeling, what you described, the feeling that you described, it's also a decision of Ruth, yeah, to, as you said, to go, to concentrate on the street and on the cafe. Yeah, so not to film elsewhere and to...
Yeah, I filmed other places in the street,
Yeah.
but then I decided not to put them in the film. And it was the first time that I edited on digital. I mean, it was not really digital, but on computer. And for a long time, because before I worked with film, and I worked with an editor, a woman editor, and she said she would not touch these buttons. So it was a funny editing experience because we engaged a young man who, for the first time, was an assistant in editing. So my editor and me, we were sitting there behind him and told him what to do, you know. And he's now, since then, I work with him. Dieter Pichler, he's became a very good editor and works on many documentaries, and I, since then, made all my films with him.
Okay, not with her anymore?
No, she didn't want to edit digitally, but she was always a very important consultant. And unfortunately, a year ago, she had a stroke and is completely disabled. And which was very sad because for the Waldheim Waltz, it was the first time that we couldn't ask her to show her the rough cut, and she was a very sharp critique, and her critique was the most important one for Dieter and me. So now she's not in the business anymore.
And I was picturing you, both of you behind him, not daring to touching the buttons. No, it was funny. Yeah. And when you filmed, I saw that there was also Nurit Aviv, and so she came to film for you.
Yes, I
She
made
was-
many films with her,
Yeah.
and there was 1 week when I filmed with her.
Okay.
She came for 1 week, and I think this was, I made the paper bridge with her towards Jerusalem, Fleeting Passage to the Orient, and this film, and then again Zorro's Bar Mitzvah. Yeah, I think that was it.
It's a lot.
Yes, yes. Yeah. Nurit Aviv is a camera woman who was quite good. She doesn't work as a camera person anymore. She makes her own films now.
Yeah. Yes, I knew that you had worked together, but I forgot. I forgot it, and now I saw it and I remembered. Yeah. So you like a good crew. I mean, you were a good crew with her, forming a good crew.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I liked her style.
Yeah.
It was difficult. She's a difficult person,
Mm.
but it was also an advantage that she speaks perfect German. So it's important for a person who has the camera to understand and to listen and to understand what people say, to have the right reactions. So this was important, and we
And-
made some good films
Yeah,
together.
yeah. And it was not a problem for you to have different kinds of images of you behind the camera, images of you next to the camera in this film? No, I ask.
It was the first time that I worked like that.
Yeah.
But when you make the film, you always think that it's so important and everybody will notice who is behind the camera. But in fact, it kind of dissolves. I don't think that you noticed when there was a professional camera, it was me, you know, because somehow what is in the image and in the sound is more important, and you don't look that. You don't notice that much if the light is perfect or if the angle is perfect. I became more relaxed, I must say. Before this film, I was very much afraid. I mean, it was very important for me that the camera is in one hand, you know. It's one style. Of course, Paper Bridge is a much better film camera-wise, yeah. But this is it's homemade.
It's a bit,
This was also the idea of the film.
Yeah.
And it was a low-budget film. It was. I think it's good. It's okay.
Yeah.
You see.
Yeah, I think too.
So it's like in East of War, we shot just two of us, cameraman and me, who did the sound, and we had no money at all, and we just shot with a horrible camera, which was high 8. This was a small period of time when this camera existed, and it's very bad. It was very bad, but the film is a really very important document, you know. So it depends. So the film Fleeting Passage to the Orient we shot on Super 8, Super 16, and it was a blow up on 35. So it's a beautiful camera film with beautiful images. I mean, every film needs another style, appropriate to what you want to show, I think.
Yeah, anyway, for me what is very important is from where you film and the relation with what you are filming. So if it's right, then it can be a crap image, but we don't care. You know, obviously the ideal is to have a super great image, but to have a super great image with nothing in it.
Yeah, and I mean our perception changed with the video and digital. I mean,
true.
We can like it or not, but it did. It's still great to have a film which is shot on film. This is different, but it's also quite difficult to do it. Yeah.
Are you currently working at other projects?
So, you know that it's filmed, so you have to...
Hi, are you currently working at other projects?
Well,
Other
my last
movies
film
and
was the Waldheim film, and I traveled the whole year 2018 with this film. So I didn't really have time to work on a new film, but right now I do an installation which will be shown in August. It was a commission from the Salzburg Festival, so I also like to do installations, and I did some. I like to work in space with images and sound, with media, but in a different way. So it's an installation about James Joyce, which is something completely new and different from me, which is good, you know, to get something new in your head. But I'm not working on a new film right now.
Over there.
Hello, how do you feel about the film now, and what is your relation with the film? I think it's a very important question.
How do I feel about this film? Well, it's I like it a lot, but it's also, you know, it always makes me sad to see when you see one of your older films and you know who is dead already and what is gone, and so it's an ambivalent feeling. On one hand, it's great that people stay alive in a film. On the other hand, it's strange because they are not here anymore. So that's how I feel.
Yes,
But I'm happy with the film. I like it. It gives me a warm feeling.
especially because it's like your, you know, it's your familiar place. It's your street. So it's a moment in time that it's captured and will live forever, I guess.
My street is also in the film Paper Bridge, the film that will be shown tomorrow, but only a small moment. And actually, Mr. Doft is in Paper Bridge for the first time, a film I shot in 1986. And then, at this moment, The street was full of shops like his. There were many Jewish textile shops, en gros. How do you say en gros? Not on detail, but they sold to. No, they sold not to individuals, but to other shops. Yeah, okay.
That's what I wanted to
Yeah. Okay. So the street was completely different. There were no restaurants and things like that. So then the street changed, and when I shot, and Mr. Doft, well, there's also a moment with him in this film from 1986. Then he appears in this film of 1999, 2000, and another film I made, I made a film about bar mitzvah. I don't know if you know what a bar mitzvah is. That's in the Jewish religion, a boy at the age of 13 and a girl at the age of 12 have a kind of ritual, rite de passage, a kind of ritual to become a grown-up. And he's also in this film. There's a moment with him. So he appears in some of my films. But the street changed. Today it's a completely different atmosphere. There are only restaurants and discotheques, and there's nothing left of this textile business.
How do you feel about those small businesses going out in favor of big companies or big names? Those small companies, like the Mr. Dove Textiles company, they are no longer there. No, and other companies, bigger companies and with more commercial purpose are taking their place, right?
Yeah, but not in this street. In this street you have only, as I said, pubs and restaurants.
Yes, and
it
how
became a place where young people go out for the weekend. So when I was a child, I also lived there when I was a child. It was a completely dead street. I was always afraid in the dark to come home because there was nobody in the streets after they closed their shops. Today you can come home on Friday and Saturday at 4 in the morning and there are young people sitting on my doorsteps, you know. Sometimes it's nice, sometimes they are very drunk. So it's another atmosphere, but it's okay.
And if you would do another film on your street, what will be, well, what you will
We should film at night, because there's nightlife today, but it's, I'm not really interested. There are men, you know, it's like you have a street like that, where we've been yesterday. What is it, Lipansky or Lipskan? Yeah, it's a street like that now, you know? It's...
dead in the days and alive at night.
Yes.
Okay, I must stop because I'm a very curious person and I will ask question after question and I will stop.
Ask a good question. One more.
One more?
Yes.
Okay, when you start filming Mr. Dodd, you knew he was going to take over as the main character?
He?
Yes.
No, I
no,
don't
and
know.
it was asked before, but how did you feel in the filmmaking process when you start seeing that he was becoming a main character?
It's okay. I mean, I always go with the flow, you know. I mean, that happens many times that you discover someone who is an interesting person and who is also good on camera, because there are interesting people who are very bad on film. So you have to decide, and it's always good if someone has both. Yeah. I mean, I knew that he would be important. But, you know, when I start working on a film like this, I don't have a strict concept. my concept is the 200 square meters in front of my house. And then I let myself being surprised by what happens. I don't know beforehand whom I will film and which questions I will ask. I just do it spontaneously in a way.
Thank you.
Any more questions? Do you have something else you want to share with us, with the Romanian public? Mhm.
No, I'm fine.
You're fine? Yes, maybe you all want to come tomorrow to see the next film of Ruth. And
I
at what
hope
it's,
the film you show tomorrow will be on a good screen,
Yeah.
because it's a beautiful film shot on 60mm with Nurida Viv as a camera woman, and I hope that the screening will be...
it's which, anybody knows in which theater it is?
I think
know.
it's here.
It's here?
No.
So it's, sorry. No,
It's a pity that
it's
there are
better.
no cinemas anymore,
Yes.
apparently, and we have to
Yes,
live with what we have.
exactly. It's better than nothing.
It is.
And the cinemas are going to be reconstructed, hopefully. And yeah. So it's at what time tomorrow? You don't remember? Oh, it's 8:30. So
So come, it's a beautiful film, and part of it was shot in Romania,
yeah.
in the north,
Mhm.
the Bukovina as we called it.
Yes.
Suceava, Seret, Radauts, and the landscape in winter, it's quite beautiful.
Because your family is coming from there, also, no?
My father came from Chernovitz,
Mhm.
which is in Ukraine today, but at the time he lived there, it was Romanian.
Oh, okay. Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. I forgot. Yeah. So, and also, if you want to meet Ruth and to meet other filmmakers, you must know that every night at 11 o'clock, we go to home, comment on dit? London Home. Londo Home. Londo. Yes, tonight too. London Home. Yes, it is tonight also, or maybe not you, but tomorrow
I
night.
stayed very late yesterday, so...
Okay, tomorrow night, if you want to speak one-to-one with Ruth. And yeah, thank you for staying with us.
Thank you.